The way I like to think about Kundalini, Kundalini awakening, Kundalini transformation, is dead simple. It's the expansion of energy, the refinement of energy, and the healing and the realignment of the subtle body and the gross body to deal with that expanded energy. Okay. Maybe none of that sounded simple, so I'll try to explain a little bit. And this is all coming from my own personal experience. My path from the very beginning was very physical. My initial awakenings, what I would call some kind of Kundalini awakening or Kundalini stirring, was punctuated by massive amounts of heat in the body, spontaneous movements, spontaneous asanas, spontaneous mudras of the hands, of the tongue, of the eyes, of all kinds of different things. Well, it was quite supernatural at that time, but it made me realise that there is something more going on. There's something more to this life. There's something more to this world. And there's something more to this body, because when I had these experiences, maybe I'll talk in more detail in another video, but when I started having these experiences, I could feel another body beyond this body. I could feel another type of energy that was not just the gross energy of this physical body that, we replenish by eating, drinking and sleeping, resting, etc. Right, so very simple way to think about Kundalini is we have to think about energy. And we have to think about the energy that's not so much used by the body, the energy that comes from food, the energy that comes from calories, etc. But I mean more the subtler energy that's used by the mind, and that we constantly use and maybe abuse by constantly thinking. Constantly thinking, constantly fearing, desiring, controlling, manipulating, plotting, defending ourselves, creating new identities for ourselves, creating new stories for ourselves and for our lives, right? To do this, we must use energy. And Kundalini, the Kundalini transformation, first of all, Kundalini means kind of uncoiling. There's the uncoiling of energy. Energy in its coiled form is how we ordinarily use energy. We think. We think, we invent, we imagine. We imagine ourselves as who we take ourselves to be. We imagine that self into existence, moment after moment after moment after moment after moment. The Kundalini transformation starts happening when that energy is put to a different use. So, for example, what happens if our ordinary train of thinking, feeling, emoting, imagining, whatever, plotting, controlling, is interrupted? And we start having moments of silence, moments of peace. And how do we get these moments? Through accepting the way things are, right? If we accept the way things are, what we're going to think about, we've accepted, right? If our mind starts to be punctuated by these gaps, moments of silence, moments of deeper silence, stillness, peace, what is happening with that energy in those moments? Right? What happens with the energy in those moments when we're not using it for thinking is Kundalini transformation. Right? This is that energy finding a different expression. And what happens is, when some of that energy is freed up, freed from the task of constantly thinking, constantly imagining, that energy starts to heal us. It starts to heal our subtle body. Because our subtle body, which is the body kind of behind this physical body, it's the body that's expressing itself through this physical body. And if you want to know anything about your subtle body, you don't need to start trying to feel energy and this and that. Your subtle body is your mind, right? Your subtle body is a reflection of your mind. We can't show anybody our mind, right? The mind is not something which falls into the purview of the five senses. The mind is subtle. So subtle body and the mind is one. So what happens is, when that energy is freed up, it starts to work on the subtle body. It starts to remove or erode or dissolve blockages which are present in the subtle body. And this is not something that we have to do voluntarily. There are so-called spiritual practices that where we do this voluntarily. Well, not we, I don't do it, I've never done these kind of practices, such as Kriya. Okay, we try to amplify our energy so the subtle body starts to become realigned. But on the natural path, this all happens automatically. When that energy is freed up, when that energy is loosened, it goes wherever it needs to go within the subtle body to remove a blockage, to open a blockage up. And that blockage may open up in the form of something surfacing within the mind, something that we'd forgotten about, some memory, some trauma, some regret, some sense of guilt, some sense of shame, something. Okay? It's released because that energy has gone into that blockage and loosened it up. And then we can digest it. Then the path lies in digesting it, right? So this is what the Kundalini transformation is. We are freeing up energy somehow by whatever our practice is. In my case, I talk a lot about acceptance. Acceptance frees an extraordinary amount of energy up. Because like I said, if we accept, then what we're going to be worrying about, what we're going to be fearing, that automatically frees up a lot of energy. What happens with that freed up energy? It starts acting on the subtle body. It starts acting on the blocks within the subtle body. What happens then? That activity of energy, that unblocking activity, has its own symptoms. I had many of these different symptoms. Probably the main one is heat. Heat in the subtle body, heat in the spine, heat in different areas of the body. Okay, spontaneous movements maybe, spontaneous mudras, all these kind of things. These are reflections in the physical body of this work that's going on in the subtle body. And this work is carried out by this energy that's been loosened up, this energy that's been freed up. We can also call this energy shakti, if we want to use this term, right? And this kind of activity can also be triggered by, if you're connected to real master or guru or whatever. In their presence, Shaktipat happens. What is Shaktipat? It's their spare energy, because they've got so much spare energy, because they're not thinking about anything. They're just like an overflowing waterfall of this potent, subtle energy. When you're with them, whether they touch you or not, whether they touch you or look at you, doesn't matter. It flows into you. So Shaktipat is just like free energy, in a way. We're getting that free energy, and that energy is coming into us and working on our subtle body. So this is another way that this thing happens. And the Kundalini transformation, I don't like to look at it as one thing, one awakening. It's punctuated by many different kinds of experiences. It's just this, it's just what I'm talking about. It's this happening. Our mind is getting clearer, our mind is getting more empty, more still, also less conflicted. That frees up energy. Something has to happen with that energy. If we leave that energy alone, we don't immediately run off and start trying to spend all our time maybe creating things, right? If we give that energy some space to do its work, it starts working on us, starts working on our subtle body, like I said. And that's the Kundalini transformation. It's the transformation, the healing of the subtle body from a kind of distorted, blocked, misaligned form to a perfectly pure subtle body that becomes like a conductor for just the pure energy of existence, the pure energy of life, neutral energy of life, just like electricity. We can do this, that, and the other with electricity, but ultimately it's neutral, right? Eventually, through the Kundalini transformation, our subtle bodies become like this, and also the physical body transforms along with it. And we become conductors of this energy. We become transmitters, transponders of this energy. And then in our presence, this process can be automatically initiated for other people. And if you've got a master like that who's like an overflowing waterfall of shakti, of energy, of this energy, and you're constantly in their field, not even physically, but thinking about them, reading their stuff, listening to what they say, watching videos or whatever, or communicating with them, you're coming into that field. You're coming into that field of Shaktipat, of this potent, energetic transmission. And then things start happening. Then the transformation starts happening as well. So this is how it is. And on the natural path, Kundalini awakening, Kundalini transformation on the natural path, it's not something forced. It's not something, oh, I need to do this to awaken this. Or the guru says, okay, I'm going to awaken this in you. It doesn't work like this on the natural path, on the Avadhuta path. It happens naturally. We're trying to tune into our natural flow of being, who we are, what we really want to do, what's natural for us. We're tuning into that, right? And then this will happen through that. Because being natural is very efficient energetically. Trying to be something that we are not takes a lot of energy, takes a lot of maintenance, right? Really being who we are, really being natural is an effortless flow. The energy just flows, and through that we become very powerful. Because our energy is no longer caught in these little eddies, in these little vortexes, these little blockages, whirlpools. It's expanding, it's moving, it's flowing, right? This is it. This is Kundalini transformation on the natural path. I kind of went down a lot of avenues on this talk, so I hope there's some useful stuff that people can glean from this video if they're interested in this aspect of the path, specifically as it relates to the natural path, the Avadhuta path.